if you don't talk long enough, I guess that's your own fault. But the idea is just get an idea of what each candidate stands for, what they're about, and for a lot of people in the community, just to get to know them. And with that, again, I thank you for doing this, for coming tonight, and I thank all of you for being here. It's nice to show that there's a lot of people in Miller care about who is going to be in city government. So with that, I'll let Jan read her instructions and kind of tell about how the thing's going tonight, and we'll all have fun. Again, if you got questions, let me know, and we'll write it down, because Jan will be asking the questions.
So each candidate is sitting at the table with their name and what they're running for. Each candidate will be given a minute and a half to introduce themselves at the beginning. Each candidate will have 1.5 to 2 minutes to answer a question. A light will indicate the minute and a half mark, and the comments should be wrapped up. The order of candidates will be shuffled, so if Ward 1 candidate answers, then the other Ward 1 candidate will answer, and then 2, and then 2, and then 3, and then 3, and then Mayor. The next time we'll come up, we'll try to go to 2, 2, so that not the same first person goes all the time. If a question is inappropriate, it will be not asked, or it will be modified as best possible. I've had some people that have come into the office and already asked some very inappropriate questions, I guess is what I want to say, and I've kind of dumbed them down into some minor questions so that they're a little more generalized. No questions will be asked discussing named personnel. So if you have a specific named person, we won't ask that question because that's inappropriate. Speak up, speak clearly. A microphone will not be used. Otherwise, we just pass the mic around and everybody doesn't do that. If a tangent is started by a candidate, I will remind the people what the actual question is so that everybody gets the same question to answer, so we're not getting off on tangents. Quick, concise answers will be appreciated so that we can move on to questions. Okay? So, here's the question. And the first one, code enforcer.
Were you gonna let us have an opening statement?
Oh, I'm
It says
sorry.
on here first.
Correct. You're correct. So go ahead. Let's start with the outside. And let's go with Bob. Bob is the first one.
Go stand up there.
Hold on just a second, guys. We got quite a few people watching, so we want to
be able to hear.
Yes, this is live streaming.
so kind of speak up because you can't pick up a lot through that.
I can't see it.
Are we good? My name is Bob Steers. I am running for the office of mayor. My wife Diane is here with me tonight. We are both 30-year residents of Miller. I'm a lifelong resident of Han County. We have 3 adult children, 2 grandkids, and 1 absolutely soon to join us maybe tonight or tomorrow. We'll see. So lots of excitement at our house. I spent 6 years on the city council. I got off last May. Spent a great deal of time on the council on various committees and subcommittees. Greatly enjoyed my time there, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be Miller's next mayor.
Tom?
My name's Tom McGow. I was actually born in Miller, so it's kind of turnaround coming back. My lovely wife Rosemary is here. I graduated from San Antonio High School, 48 years so far in education and coaching. The last 41 years, I'm proud to say, has been in Miller. We have 2 grown kids. Jody's a speech therapist in Orville, Minnesota. She's presently living in Millbank. The son that's the assistant superintendent of human resources out in California. I'm in Menifee School District. He's in charge of about 12 schools. And I'm presently working part-time at the school. I work with kids who struggle a little bit in the classroom, so I have assigned them. So it's kind of fun to be able to work with them. I also was in city government for about 11 years, about a about a year, a little over a year, it was for mayor until Doug DeBoer assumed the sheriff's duties when Kurt Hall left. And from that point on, I was served as mayor. And I'm also looking forward to the opportunity to get back involved in city government and work with the people of Miller. But anyway, I appreciate any of the support as we move forward, and I value this time tonight, and I appreciate everybody who's here and then also who's watching. The one thing I thought about when the time is limited, I have a number of students in this group that would probably have appreciated the limited time in front of the classroom too at one time. Thank you.
I'm Will Jones. I'm a Miller native. My wife Brooke and I have 4 kids, all quite busy. I own and operate Jones Construction here in town, and spend a lot of time in town here. And I look forward to the opportunity to be able to be a contributing team member to the city council. Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute, Ward 1, we're in opposite order. I apologize, Ward 1, I apologize, Tony, sorry.
My name's Gail Auk. I grew up in Miller. I am married to Mavis Henson. I'm retired after 19 and a half years at Mid Dakota Rural Water. And I'm also a previous council member, and I'm looking forward to get back on and see if we can keep the city going in the right direction.
Let's see, Ward 2, Joe.
I'm Joe Zeller. I'm a lifelong resident of Miller. My wife Gail and I have 3 kids, 5 grandkids. I'm a 3rd generation carpenter in Miller. I love spectator sports because I'm always following the wrestlers and race cars, and I'd like to continue to help Miller run in a positive direction.
My name is Patrick Price. Moved around a lot growing up, including Miller, but this is the longest that we lived anywhere. But when I got done with school, like Miller the most, so decided to live my adult life here, which I've spent most of it minus 1 year as Miller. But it's a great place to raise a family. I have a wife where we have 3 kids, 12, 3, and 1. I am a member of the Miller Fire Department, where I also serve on the board of directors. I'm also on the ambulance crew, in the EMT, and also on the Civic and Commerce, where I organize the city light show. Is probably the biggest thing that I've contributed to that on the park every year. My wife will attest that I'm usually always, it's hard for me to say no, but it's very easy for me to say yes to helping out the city and making sure everything's going in a good direction where my kids will also love to grow up in this town. I appreciate any opportunity to serve the city of Miller any further.
Ward 3.
My name's Dale Hargens. My wife Susan and I, we have 4 adult children, 11 grandchildren. 8 of our grandchildren go to school right here in Miller. I've served in the legislature for 8 years, including in leadership capacities, various water development district boards that helped get Mid Dakota built in this area. My wife was very instrumental in that. I also served on the Miller School Board for about 12 years, I think, when we kind of took this down and built the high school. I'm very committed to the Miller community and the Han County in general. I look forward to serving the people of Miller. I don't think you're going to find anybody that's got probably more experience to do it, whether that's going to Pier to lobby for something that's going to affect municipalities. I was out in Pier recently, and when I walked in, I still know about half of them, so that really helps. They come up and talk to you, and just about everyone wished I was back, so I felt good about that. And I hope you'll feel the same way after you vote for me and get me in city council. Thank you.
Tony.
I'm Tony Randall. I moved here about 34 years ago when I became postmaster. I was postmaster here for 18 years till I retired. And my wife Betty moved, and we have 2 adult children. One works for Delta Airlines in Atlanta, and the other one is the Human Resources Director in Des Moines for a large company. So, unlike everybody else on here, I'm not a lifetime member, or was never born and raised in Miller, but I did live a long time here before I got the postmaster job here. And I've served on the city council before, and I really enjoyed serving there. There's a lot of things that go on there that I thoroughly enjoy. And I'd love to get back on the city council and represent the citizens of Miller again. Thank you.
So we'll start with question number 1, and this one is for Will and for Pat specifically. I think everybody should answer. You guys are very busy with young families and businesses and other boards. How do you plan to balance your time? So, Ward 1, you go first.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are busy, and, you know, some of the things that keep me busy are my family and my business, and those are the same types of things that motivate me to be on city council. Those are some of the driving forces behind my deep care for the well-being of the city. And, you know, I think most people here are busy people, and so a lot of that comes down to how you prioritize things and what your priorities are. And I am fully committed to making city council a priority of mine, and that's how I would manage that, I guess. Being busy isn't always a bad thing. It can be a good thing as well. Thank you.
First off, I couldn't do it without my wife. A little biased, but I think she's the best. But we'll set it great with priorities. Obviously, priority is family, but part of that priority is also making a great community for the family. Obviously, I plan on putting the city first as far as my extracurricular ventures of helping with the city. I guess it was never a thought that it was going to be hard to prioritize time towards the city and to do it very well, not just showing up to meetings, but also talking to department heads, employees, and members of my ward to get their opinions about topics and issues that ultimately they should have to say in how I go. So.
Hey, I'd like to have everybody else answer that question as well, because, I mean, you're all busy. So, let's see, you did Ward 1, so Ward 1?
Well, my wife and I don't have any children, and the fact that I'm retired, I have plenty of time to research stuff and spend a lot of time on city projects and stuff like that.
And we did Ward 2, so Ward 2, Joe?
I've had the city as a priority for many years, and being self-employed, I can somewhat free up time just to do that, is spend time at City Hall and out in the public too. I'm out in public all the time, everywhere you go, so.
Hey, Ward 3?
I don't think it'd be a problem. I recently retired from farming and rented my ground to my daughters. I'm gonna help them, of course. We have the racetrack, keeps us busy on the weekends, but it won't be a problem. I think in 8 years in the legislature, I missed one day, and that was because a very good friend of mine, it was his funeral, and I had to be a pallbearer. And I think I only missed one board meeting on the water development districts in 20-some years, and that was the day my dad died.
Tony?
Like a lot of them here, I'm retired. I have the time. Most importantly, I take the time to go and get questions answered that the constituents might have or that I might have. And that takes a lot of time to do it properly and get all the information before you make an informed decision. So I feel I have ample time to do it. I done it before for 10 years. I think I can do it.
I work in the morning, full-time at the school, then of course I coach track and cross country as well. But if I have a nice window from 12 o'clock until, you know, when I'm not having a sports coach until 5 o'clock. So I have a lot of availability at that time. I've had made opportunities to go down to City Hall to make sure that if there's anything going on, anything that I need to look into. And I think it's just like anything else. We know pretty much when things are scheduled. We know ahead of time, so we try to schedule that. I think the only conflict I have is this Monday with the weather the way it is. We have an indoor meet at at Sioux Falls or at Brookings, so I'm hoping to juggle, be able to take the kids there, but also do something with regard to the meeting. But it's a juggling act. We do have other responsibilities and things of that sort, but it is a priority. We work for you, and if we're not doing our job, that's on us, because we're there for you, and each one of our voices do make a difference. Each of the questions that are asked, and any little bit of insight that can be given is vital to the decisions that ultimately will be made. So, you make it work. So thank you.
And Bob?
So that's a really good question. The city council is a big job. It takes a lot of time. I am not retired. I am fully involved in what is now a fourth generation business, my ranch south of Miller. I spend a ton of time there. I will be out fighting the elements tomorrow on our next fun blizzard that we have going here. So 6 years that I spent on the council, not only did I have the ranch, but we also own Turtle Creek. I managed to take care of the ranch, work a tremendous amount of time at Turtle Creek, and put a lot of time into my job at City Hall. The saying is, if you need a job done, you ask a busy man, and the busy man will find a way to get the work done. So.
Okay. Countywide sharing of services department and equipment. So, how about if we start with Ward 2? Sure. Countywide sharing of services departments, equipment, personnel, things like that. I'm assuming they're meeting, one thing that came up during this question asked was road graders, sharing road graders back and forth. But also, I think they were also alluding to the countywide law enforcement. So.
We live in a small enough community that we're pretty used to helping each other, and I don't think it's a foreign topic to have help going both ways, no matter whether it's equipment, street, and stuff like that. But at the same time, you gotta respect what is given, and you don't want things getting broke down on someone else's dime when these other people have to pay for it. I'm sure there's gonna be another question about law enforcement, but as of right now, sharing resources, I don't know any law enforcer that's needs help that the other law enforcement agency is not going to help. That is just not gonna happen around here. I can't speak for any specific agency, but that would be my impression of everybody on those departments. But all in all, I think you start getting more trickier subjects if you draw the line of no helping anybody outside of your purview.
Okay, and Ward 2? Joe?
Back when Ron Blatchford became mayor, we had the county highway department and the city highway street department have been sharing duties with oiling roads. Sometimes they share meetings. Sometimes we use our oil truck to go out and help them when they do roads in the summertime, and vice versa. It really makes, instead of, in the past, we took the whole city crew, it took a week to do streets. Now it's county, city, and we do it in 2 days. It makes a really big difference. We also go back and forth with law enforcement. They work really well together. And it's been a big thing the last couple of years, just to get that back into, so they're sometimes sharing duties too.
Okay, Ward 3.
Well, like Joe said, I've seen where the county and the city have worked well on paving and oiling roads around the town and out in the country, and certainly you get a lot more done with a double crew like that. And maybe one outfit doesn't have, like say an oiler, and the other guys don't have a sweeper, or vice versa, or whatever. They can share and get along and save the taxpayer money in the long run. And you know, we're all Miller City taxpayers in here probably, but a lot of us are also taxpayers out in the country. So we want to see the stuff used to the best intention and the best way it can be. And it's worked well in the past. I think it can work well into the future. As far as countywide law enforcement, I don't see the need right now. I would not be opposed to looking at it in the future. As we got officers that are getting up towards retirement age, you know, everybody that's looking for workers right now seems like they're having trouble. So it might be something that we have to look at in the future. So I think you always want to keep that open so you can look at it. So I'm never going to say no till after all the homework's done.
As far as I can remember back when I was on the council, the city and the county have always worked together, using vehicles, helping each other, whatever. And that's an ongoing thing. And now I think with the police department and the sheriff's department, I think they're getting along a lot better than they were before. So I don't see a major problem keeping them separate right now. But you never know. And in my opinion, if it ever came down to a decision, that should be something up to the taxpayers and up to the citizens of Miller to make that decision on whether it was countywide or not. You know, right now it's working good. I've got nothing bad to say about the police department. And just to say what's already been said, a lot of the employees at the city are getting up to retirement age, and it's time to start looking at bringing younger people in. If that means, like say, going to the sheriff's department, hell, not doing away with the city police, but having them assist while we put new employees in, that will move forward.
And Mayor Bob?
I think the city and the county have done a great job of co-opting on a number of issues, streets, just a whole lot of things that we get together on. The sheriff and the police department work together. They're encouraged to work together. That's an ongoing relationship that they continue to find ways to support each other, and I think that's wonderful. They each have their own specialties to take care of, and they both do a great job at that. We're a small community. We need to work together. We're all here working for exactly the same goal, and that's for the betterment of our community, for our city, for the county. People in the county are in town all the time and support our local businesses. It's important that we all continue to work together, and I think they've really done a nice job with that.
John?
You know, even before, I can remember when I was mayor, one of the things that I was really proud of was when the county and the city worked together. The county had a kind of machine that helped fill potholes. They cleaned out potholes, they filled them up, and so it was really good. Not only, and it was kind of a trade-off. Our people would, their county workers would help us, and then we in turn would help them when they had things out in the country worked really well. And I also think it's a tribute when people see that, especially within our community. I think that they're reassuring that two entities are working together. I think the same thing with law enforcement. I can't imagine the sheriff's department and the city police not working together. Those are two vital situations that, boy, you better have each other's back, because it could be a situation that could escalate even further. But I do agree, we're all in this together. We all pay the same tax dollars, and some out in the country may do a little bit more with regard to their responsibilities and things like that. But I think this is one thing I've always valued as far as an educator and as a coach, is just everybody being together, working for the same common cause. And I think when you have a county and the city working together, it's not only things get done, but I think it's reassuring to our community too as well.
it seems like the consensus here is that county and the city are happy with the arrangement of sharing, utilizing each other as far as road maintenance and construction goes. I think I would want to keep checking with department heads to make sure that both sides of that relationship were in agreement that it was working well, or what could be done different to make that work, because in a town this size, it doesn't make sense to have multiple pieces of equipment, specialized pieces of equipment, if you could be sharing it. But I think it's important that that relationship goes both ways, and that we take some intentional time to make sure that both parties are contributing equally. And as far as countywide law enforcement goes, I think the main goal that everybody has is to have competent, safe law enforcement. And if both of those institutes can provide that, then that's a great thing. But we need to make sure that they are both doing that, and that, I think most of the time that is the case. But if both institutes are contributing, that's great.
Well, I've noticed that too, which I think everybody here has, like when they worked on the streets, the county and the city work together, and if you ever see an accident or anything, it's always the city and the county police officer there. And I don't want to forget that the fire department, EMTs are there, so that, I mean, that's a whole bunch of people that have to work together to make sure everything goes as smooth as possible in some of those situations. And as far as the countywide law enforcement, maybe it's feasible down the road, but right now I don't feel that it is. I'm not saying that it can't go that way though.
Next question, code enforcement. Which is the first?
Okay. As some people can remember, years ago, I probably started code enforcement coming to Miller. I could see some personal things, which you're not really supposed to do. But as I went around town, I could see that a lot of the community was failing, keeping the properties up, keeping them clean. So I did a little investigation, found out that you could get a code enforcement, because on the council, we decided that we couldn't have the police do it.
Can you speak up a little bit more?
We couldn't have the police do it, because then somebody would say they're picking on them. So, and then getting an individual from the community wouldn't work either, because somebody would come back and say, well, that individual doesn't like me, so we're not gonna listen to him. So we went outside the community and hired a code enforcer. At the time that we hired the code enforcer, there was 12 communities doing code enforcement in the state. Other than Sioux Falls, Watertown, the larger ones had their own private ones that they had in the community. Since then, they now have 4 code enforcers. They do 60 to 62 communities. They do communities the size of North Sioux City, 3,700 people, and they do Mulberg, 3,000, Spearfish, 3,200. Plus, they have one community of 104 people that want a code enforcement. So it's just not our community here doing code enforcement. So that's what I have to say about code enforcement. Time's up, sorry.
Thank you, Tony. And Ward 3, Dave.
Well, I've had no experience with that code enforcer. I got a letter from them, and so I went and checked it out, and it turned out it wasn't even my property. You know, first and foremost, I think you gotta have somebody doing this that either knows where the property is, knows where the people are, or takes the time to maybe ride with the police officer and find out, or ride with the city crew and find out. I gave this guy an earful, and he kind of knew it. 'Cause I was not very pleased when I get a threatening letter in the mail from somebody I don't know about some place that I don't own. I've never been a big supporter of the code enforcer. However, recently I had a conversation with somebody in law enforcement and I can see his point that you don't wanna show up with your gun belt and all your stuff on. That's kind of threatening too. So I can see that side of it. But I think somewhere in there, there's a happy medium, and I think we need to look at it a little further. But as far as somebody from Aberdeen that doesn't have a clue where you live or I live, or any of you folks live, there's gotta be something done there, because that's not working.
Thank you. Mayor Tom?
We had this discussion earlier, before the code enforcement. The biggest concern I had when people had some concerns about somebody's property, or maybe something should be done, is sometimes some of these individuals have no means of cleaning up their property, of no means of help, and that's where I think some type of happy medium where, okay, something needs to be done, but sometimes people need help getting it done. I know there's some, if they have cars that need to be taken, then we have to have some means of taking it. Some things have to be done. Some of the ones I was thinking about are a retired widow. That was one of the, concerns as far as the property with it. That was my concern, Okay, something needs to be done, but can we do something as a community, kind of help it out? And, I understand, and I think there's a, I think there again is a means to get something done that needs to be done in the manner in which we approach it. I think that's huge. And just more or less a working relationship, with somebody in that effect, so.
Bob?
It's really unfortunate that we need a code enforcer at all. And that's, you can get into a little bit of trouble saying that, but if we are all doing our part and taking care of our community, we don't even need the code enforcer. Unfortunately, we do. He provides a huge benefit to our community. To attract new businesses, new families, we need to keep our community looking sharp. It's a really important thing that as we move forward, that we look the part. If somebody is having trouble, I know this for a fact because we did it when I was on the board or on the council. If somebody in the community gets a letter and they're not able, all they have to do is ask and the city will help. That to say that it's just going to be forced on them is absolutely not true. The city will step forward. They will help whoever it is that needs it if they cannot help themselves. And it's a great service that the code enforcer is bringing to Miller. I don't think we need to change at all. Yep, he might get an address wrong once in a while, but in general, these guys are trained specifically to the laws of code enforcement, which are very state specific. And so it's important that we have a trained code enforcer doing the job.
Thank you. Ward 1, Gail?
Well, I think it's important to have the code enforcer too, but like Tom was saying, you gotta go about it a different way when he sends out these letters. If he's gotta check it 4 or 5 times and talk to 2 or 3 people down at the city hall, he's gotta make sure that letter goes to the right person and it's the right person's property, because Dale's not the only one. I know of a couple other individuals, I won't mention names, but they got these same letters and it wasn't their stuff. And I think as a community, we're all good neighbors. I mean, I think if someone needs some help, haul something out, I mean, I think people pitch in and help out.
Thank you. Will?
In a perfect world, we wouldn't need a code enforcer, but you can drive around town until that isn't the case. I would question briefly whether or not we have to have a specific job for a code enforcer, whether or not law enforcement could handle some of that, and maybe there are good reasons that we don't do that. Someone needs to enforce aesthetic rules around town, and I think that if we're gonna take the step of sending letters and asking people to maintain their property, then we need to stand behind that and actually follow through and make sure that's done. I think that's a huge kicker there. It's a lot easier to justify the cost of a code enforcer if you can drive around, walk around town and see that it has made a difference.
Awesome, thank you. Ward 2, Pat?
My opinion is obviously it's needed. No one's gonna dispute that. My big questions that I don't know is it best to have an outside person? There's benefits to have someone that's not a community member do that. And then there's also benefits to have someone that's possibly a local, where it's absorbed into a different job. Obviously, the job titles change. But that comes down to cost, what it actually costs, and what the benefit we are getting by getting an objective third party to that. But the biggest thing is any policy that is in place by the city of Miller can always be relooked at, make sure that we're doing it the most efficient way possible, and it's still the best idea, and we're going about it the best way. Anything we do, including the code enforcement job, could always be relooked at and say, hey, we got some fresh eyes on the council. Does anybody have new ideas about what can be done? And ultimately, as long as it's being done fairly in town, where no one can say, well, I got a letter, but he didn't get a letter, then as long as that's not being done and everything's being done fair, and obviously the goal has always been trying to do that, no one's been malicious in any of it, but I think we can always stay open to looking at change.
Thank you. And Joe?
I'm for the code enforcer, and fortunately in Miller, in September, we have a give back day where people can call in and they can have people come clean up their property. And then in the fall, when we have a free dump weekend, the city will go ahead 2 days before that, and they will go pick up the trash and the garbage and the tree branches if you get it hauled in the curb. And I know one instance where they had to go down in a basement and haul out an old heavy bed out of the basement and the couch out of the upstairs because the people hadn't got the help to do it till the next day. Well, the next day was gonna be too late. So we do that, it helps. And in the past, I've told people when they've come up to me, I've got a letter, and I said, well, we can work with you. Tell me your timeline, and we can work with you. Don't just take this. Come to the council. We have ways to go to help you.
Thank you. This one is a question for those who have been on the council before. Why did you get off? So.
I can start. I was voted on. I don't think I have to put any more detail on that. I ran an election, people wanted to change evidently, and so they voted me off. So that's why I got off, otherwise I'd still be there.
Gail?
I got off the council because I thought, well, I'd let someone else have a chance, so we get different people. And then some of the stuff I've seen happen, I'm not gonna mention anything, but, there's just some issues that I think could be corrected, and that's why I've decided to run for the council again.
Okay. Bob?
It would be me. So I got off a year ago in May. I had said for quite some time that if there was somebody else, a young person, I think it's really important that we get new people on the council. I think it's great that we've got some young people here willing to step up and try their hand at this. I had said that if there was somebody coming up that really wanted to do it, I would step away. As it turned out, Mike Wetz approached me, and he was really interested in the job, and it was an opportunity for me to step back. I was very busy at that time, still with a full-time ranch and another business in town. It was just a nice opportunity for me to step away for a while. The year off has been really good. It's been a nice, just an eye-opening for me to step away from it and look at it from a distance before I wanted to get back on here. So.
Okay. Did I miss anybody that's already been on? You were on before, right now you're back on, so.
Yes.
Do you want to?
No, the time I stepped aside, and it was a hard decision, it really was, because I thoroughly enjoyed my role as mayor. But I also felt there was a time to, just kind of step back and kind of look at some things and things of that sort, and I think we did a good job, had some things in place. A lot of projects were completed. The fire hall was done. We did the crossing arms was before that, and the bathhouses. So I just felt that at the time, but there's always that, a couple students, kind of question why I did, so I thought, but I always in the back of my mind, if the opportunity presented itself, and when this opportunity did present itself, I was really excited to, be a part of the city government again.
Awesome, thank you. So, this one is, talking about additional, lots. So you have one house, but you also have a lot next door, and currently that is not being charged a water fee. And there's been talk about possibly having it charged. So that's where that comes down. Where do we want to start, Mayor? Mayor?
Charge a fee for a lot that doesn't have any, is there any water or sewer
There's
on
water
that
and
lot?
sewer to the lots, from what I understand. So like basically, I have a house here, I bought the house next door, and I tore the house down. And now I'm not being charged a water or sewer charge for that lot. Should I be? Shouldn't I be?
I
don't know.
That's a good question. I'm not sure on that. I don't want to jump to another issue, but I do know some people who have, let's say a garage or a workhouse and a house over here, 2 separate meters, and they're being charged, kind of double for that, and if they have 1 meter, then they're all right. If they have 2, they're paying for that. And I think, that's just the way it is. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying wrong. But when you have things like that, let's look into it. If that was my lot and I have nothing on there, I would be hesitant to, pay for it simply because no services are being rendered at that location. I understand, there might be a concern. I don't want to read too much into it, but kind of disperse the fees that are being assessed on a broader basis to maybe relieve some households. I get that, but I think that's something that a person could look at and kind of assess it and decide. So,
Bob?
If they're on the second lot, if the services are still there, if they are viable hookups, they are still the responsibility of the city to maintain. If something goes wrong with the sewer or the water, the city crew would still have to go in and repair that particular hookup. That's why there is still a fee assessed on those empty lots. If the homeowner, the new lot owner, wishes to, you can have those completely removed and those fees will go away. Until that point, they are, again, city responsibility. If something goes wrong, the city crews will be in there taking care of it, and that's why those fees are assessed. Whether or not anybody lives on the lot, as long as the services are there and available.
Okay. And let's see, Ward 1?
I agree the same, kind of like what Bob says, if the service is there and available into the structure itself, yeah, they should have to, but if you tear a couple houses down and you cap the sewer and water line and stuff, I would say that ends there. Because I'm one of those people that have 2 meters, but I chose it to be that way.
Ward 1? Will?
Well, it seems like a real specific hypothetical, but I think
Did my best.
I think I would, without more information, it's kind of hard to be real specific, but I think I would lean towards whether or not those utilities are potentially viable, usable, and if they are, that undoubtedly adds some value to that property. So you can't get both. You can't maintain this value of property because it has extra utility hookups and also not pay for them. So at first glance, that's how I would interpret that.
So thank you. Ward 2?
It's a really specific question. I think it wants to be answered in a really specific way, but I think it needs to be looked at on a broader stroke of making a policy, not policy, but looking at exactly what the question is. Because if it is, there's still a structure there and there's still services going all the way up to that, and it could be instantly just meter thrown in and could take off. Obviously, the services are still good and need to be maintained in a certain way. If things are getting taken out and someone buys a property, then I don't say a new owner should have to pay the surcharges of something that they have no plan on ever hooking anything up. But I'm sure the loans were assessed a certain way by however many meters were in town. So if you have a property that had a meter and you started paying the surcharges, you can't just get rid of the utilities to get rid of the surcharge. So I think it's a real specific opportunity to look at the deals. If it's a new owner and they've never paid surcharges on that place and they're getting rid of utilities, or is it someone that is getting rid of a standing structure and going from there?
Awesome, thank you. Ward 3.
Well, I'm probably one of the people that's got some of those properties I don't know. I do know we've tore some houses down and the sewer is capped, and I couldn't tell you if the shut-off is still there by the curb stop. I don't know. We informed the city what we're gonna do, but there may still be a shut-off there. The line is capped beyond that. But I would be very opposed to trying to put fees on that, because basically, if somebody wants to come in and buy that and build a home, yeah, then you're gonna get that back online. But I got one instance where I tore 3 houses out. There's one house went in on a lot and a half, and now the other lot and a half is the backyard. I don't think that person should have to pay 3 meters.
Awesome.
Look up the tax base that new house brought in. It's huge.
Ward 3. Tony.
I think it was determined a while back that as long as there was a line going on that property, inside that property, that it could be serviced later on, that they would be charged a surcharge for that. And that would be the only thing they'd be charged for, is the surcharge, because it's still a viable spot to put a home. So if I'm not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was put in place, that as long as there was a service going in there, that the surcharge would be paid.
Okay, thank you. So this one is extra time on building permits. Currently, I think you get like 2 months to get it started in a year to get it finished or something like that. And what if somebody doesn't get it done in the time frame of the year? Should they get extra time? So that's the question, and we'll start with Ward 2. Joe? I think I'm on Ward 2.
I guess if you look at, there's some people that are do-it-yourselfers. It takes time, and sometimes that money isn't just rolling in. They'll get a project started and something else happens. I feel that as long as they're working at it and there's progress being made, we're a small town. Let them work at it. But yeah, you should start. Throw a stake in the ground, dig a hole.
Ward 2.
As one of them do-it-yourselfers, I know that some projects I start, I am not going to complete in the time of a building permit. I feel as though it should be a pretty easy and seamless way to re-up that, and I don't think it's necessarily too hard right now, but just making sure everybody is aware that, hey, just go ahead and re-up it. It's not gonna be a big deal, no harm, no foul. But we all know projects are gonna take some time, because when you have a dozen of them that you start and not finish any of them, you're gonna have some that cross over a little bit, so. But as long as everything's being respectful and you're not creating an eyesore and it's starting to violate code, on the code enforcement part of it, I don't think it should be a big deal to just get it extended.
Thank you. Ward 3, Dale.
Well, you gotta be flexible, and I think these gentlemen both made good points there, especially in this day and age where it's hard to find people to do these kinds of things, plumbers and electricians. It's just hard to find those people, let alone carpenters, same way. I know we're waiting on a project out in the country of my daughter's house, and this thing just drags on. And it seems like it's never gonna get done, and then you get a winter like this and you can't get done. And you know, the next 6 weeks in the spring isn't gonna be any better for any of these projects. So I think you gotta we're a small community, we can figure out how to make that pretty seamless, to get them, if they need to come in and get an extension, fine, make it easy to get the extension, and we're all aware of what's going on around it. If it gets to be a problem, we'll deal with it.
Tony?
I think that pretty much everybody said the same thing, that, yeah, we should allow people to take the time, it does take time, I've done a number of it myself, and it does take time to do it. So if they go past the year that they're supposed to have the project done, and they come in and they ask for extended time, we've done it before on the council, we've allowed more times. However, we do get into some situations where it's been allowed and allowed and allowed, and I think it's time to draw the line at some of them that should either be fined if they go past the time, something should be done to have them move along a little bit faster than what they're doing. I mean, a year is a long time, and if you come in and want another year extension, fine, but when they start coming in 3, 4, 5 years, then it's time to start drawing the line and maybe issue a fine, and or maybe not even issue another permit. But no, I'm willing to give people extended times to do their projects.
Thank you. Bob?
The building permits, obviously, are there for a reason. The year's time limit is there for a reason, to encourage people to start their project and to finish their project. With that said, we all know that doesn't always happen. As long as the people are making good faith efforts to continue with their project, they're working on it. As Tony said, the council works with those people. To get an extension has not been a terribly difficult thing. And there comes a point there, if these projects go on and on for a number of years, there does need to be some kind of halt put to what is going on. They do get to be an eyesore to the neighbors, as Pat or somebody was talking about. And that's the whole reason for the building permit, and to encourage it to be finished up in a timely manner, so.
Awesome, thank you. And Tom?
We had a situation like that, I remember, and a contractor was building a house, and some of the equipment and things of that sort wasn't available, and things were slowing down, and we did, just make some progress in whether or not, like Joe said, stake in the ground or whatever, and we did the council work with them, and when the equipment came in, got the housing project done and things of that sort. And if it, and we have extended a couple times, things work, where you have to extend something, do it. But I do think there becomes a time limit where, and if you're not seeing the progress now, maybe we just need to look at things. But if they're going on in progress and some things beyond their control, then I think we need to, consider some of that stuff. But I think there's certain policies in place. You don't want to bend some of the policies, because then where do we stop? But I think that working relationship to work with individuals to accommodate certain things that may be beyond their control. So.
Thank you. And then to my question, I'll own up to this one. The media policy. Currently, the city has a media policy that only the mayor is allowed to speak to the media. This has been an issue for me, and I'd like to have your feelings on it. So I'll start with Ward 3. Dale.
Well, I'm one that generally has pretty strong opinion. I don't know if I support that or not. I think once the action has been made, yes, the mayor is the one to speak to it. If we've had an issue come before the board, we've made a decision to do this, this, and this, then he should be the spokesman. But if it's something that's going to come to the board from, say, someone here in this audience or another resident of Miller somewhere, I think I ought to have a right to share my opinion with you or anybody else as well as anybody.
Thank you. Ward 3. Tony.
You're talking about an issue that might have taken place at a council meeting or something, and the mayor is the only one that can report to you. I think that's why it was put in, because if the mayor, or an individual, the mayor's not president or president, and the president will do that. But we need one spokesman, because we don't have just a single spokesman. Somebody else might say something wrong, somebody else did it wrong, and then you've got all kinds of things going back and forth. And I think that's why we put that into effect, that one person would represent the whole council after we'd made the decision. And then he would go and tell the press or whomever, this is the council's decision. So he was our main spokesman. So that was the reason I think we put it in, was that you didn't get a whole bunch of different ideas from people.
Bob?
I think it's really important that you do have one voice speaking in an official manner as far as the council goes. If you're talking about, are you referring to a freedom of speech sort of a question? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, if I go to Senator Thune and I say, what are your feelings on this subject? He can talk to me. The way the media policy states right now, they cannot speak to me. So if they're, and that's, I feel that that's an issue that everybody should have their own voice. Even if you don't agree, I voted against that, this is why I voted against this. They should be able to tell me that. And currently, the media policy says they cannot.
I remember when the media policy was put into place, and it really is just if there's an official, something that has taken place in the city council, that there is one voice that says it. There's not multiple ways to interpret something that happened. There is one truth to whatever the official decision was. If we have multiple people speaking of their opinions about something that happened, somehow we've lost what the truth really was in there. And so I think it is important that you have an official voice speaking. Other people certainly are always free to give their opinions. But as far as the official business goes from the council, and I think that's what this really refers to, you have to have some kind of an official centralized voice of what the final decision was.
Okay. Mayor?
Well, I agree. I think there's times in the past that I was, approached with regard to something or something took place, and I was glad that, I think the facts and information has to be put out there. But I think everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I think that, and as long as you're disagreeing according to the facts that are out there, that's your right. It's nice when we sit as a council and we all vote for something. Sometimes it's nice when we sometimes don't agree, that maybe we've talked an issue over a little bit and or maybe put it on hold. So I'm for putting the information out there, but yet don't limit somebody for expressing their opinion, whether or not they like it or not. And if they express their agreement or disagreement pertaining to the facts, then I think that's anybody's right to do so. I hate to muzzle, not knowing fully to what extent this policy goes to, and I guess this is the first time I've seen it. I just everybody's entitled to to express their views, as long as we keep it in an honest, forthright, and we're talking about the facts. We're not distorting the information.
Ward 1.
So that I understand this correctly, this here is the current policy,
Correct.
and the first time I've seen this is tonight, and I understand the desire to have one voice speaking for the city. Some of the wording in here strikes me as maybe flirting a little bit with some constitutional laws, but if it is a legal policy, then, and that's the policy, then I think it should be stood by. But again, this is the first time I've seen it tonight, and I'm not real well versed in all that it says.
Thank you. Ward 1, Gail.
Well, I guess if it's something the council did that's official, I would just soon have a spokesman for that. But beyond that, if someone wants to talk to me or anyone, I'm willing to talk to them and stuff. And tonight's the first time I've seen this too, and there's some things that looks to me like could maybe be redone a little bit on there, because it could infringe on your First Amendment rights.
Joe.
I'm gonna be about as wishy-washy as this on it. There's times when I really believe that it should be one person. But there's times when I would like my opinion to be out in public too. And I can't. But there's some times when something's happened and that information should come from one person that has all the facts and put some thought to that information. But like I said, I'm about as wishy-washy on that subject as there is.
Thank you. And Patrick, or two.
Also got it tonight, so I've been kind of mulling over in my head about how I actually feel about it. And my uncertainness with the policy as a whole kind of tells me more than anything else that I'm not going to stand on the hill and die by this policy, but at the same time, with my history of being in intense, high anxiety situations, we have one person that is responsible for relaying information to the media because a lot of those times we have bigger issues to be working on. As an elected official, I also feel that my opinion matters because I am trying to make a direct contact with the constituents of my ward. So ultimately, could look into it, but as a whole, I think this city would benefit if they have the confidence in the city council as a whole. So if we have a unified answer, is very beneficial. But at the same time, maybe we can stretch that where if we have nays to a vote, that the nays get to speak their piece, or before a decision has been made, we can talk about it as long as it's respectful to our other council members and to the city of Miller. But ultimately still mulling it over, but my questions in it have certain weight, ultimately.
Can I make one statement?
Sure.
I think, like I said earlier, it wasn't to stop people from asking what your opinion is. It was to have one unified voice after the decisions were made at the council, that he would go and present that to the press or whomever. I don't think anybody ever intended to put a halt to your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. If it's on the agenda and somebody asks you what's this about on the agenda, you have every right to say anything, whatever you want. That's not given up. It's just after the decision's made in the council unanimously, then it was thought that one individual, instead of getting everybody's opinions and getting everything confused, should be the one designated to give that information.
Thank you all for your thought on that. I appreciate it. Any more questions?
If you got
We're out.
questions, let me know. This is your time.
Thank you.
Nobody's got any questions? Can't ask them tomorrow. You got one?
I write it down.
Anybody else? This is your chance to speak. Too late tomorrow.
You know, and I'm just gonna comment on this policy. I think one thing in here that, and you know, sometimes it leads to interpretation, and that's why, sometimes you want a little bit more insight before you draft. But this number 7, no comment means no comment. Do not explain or discuss any occurrence or event with the media unless you are authorized to do so as a designated spokesperson. I understand the need for a designated spokesperson. I get that. And I think, but I still think the right to comment is also there, whether or not you agree or disagree or to what extent. That's the concern that you have. And not being on the format with regard to some of that, you don't have the insight needed. But you don't want to get any misinformation out there. That's the biggest concern, because sometimes you run with it, and boy, that's a pony you can't slow down, and that's a concern. And so, And I'll make one more comment with regard to water on the lot. You know, when that question was asked, I was always assumed that the sewer line was tapped and the water was shut off, so there's no access to that property. So, and again, that's something that can be discussed. I just, you know, and I think the more information you have and the more input, then that's where we draw our conclusion from. And that's where the best decisions are made.
Okay, I think she's got another one right here, too. We'll mix them up a little bit.
There you go.
Okay. Has anyone of you that sit on the board thought about having meetings with your constituents to hear their concerns?
Can I start out? You bet. You know, that's the one that, huh? Whose turn is it? I should, no, you
To be
start,
honest
no.
with you, I'm not sure where
No,
we're at.
I'm
So,
sorry.
there's basically only two of you that currently are on the board. So Joe and Tom are
Okay.
those that are currently on the board, correct?
Yeah.
I get confused, I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen you.
We're gonna let Joe go first.
Okay, well, let Joe go first.
No, I've never had that thought, but I haven't spent time in a restaurant and a little bit of time in a bar visiting about city stuff. And sometimes I am approached at work too and have a very brief conversation with people, because most of the time I'm on somebody else's clock. And they're very good about, I'll say, I got 10 minutes, I'll visit with you, and then I have to keep on working. Someone else is paying me, but I've never thought of that.
I think each one of us have our own, our own things that we work around. I value that. I really do. Anytime that I can sit down and visit with somebody with regard to an issue, to a concern, I value that. Now, granted, you don't have any time within a 24-hour time frame. Your time is limited with regard to that. I value. I even value at any time, and I'll speak for myself. After this meeting, if any individual, any group, or any organization wants to discuss things, or follow up on some information, I'd be more than happy to, sit down and visit with them, with regard to that. When you're available, I have, obviously I have some time slots that I can work in and work around, but I just feel that's, that's vital, with regard to the communication factor.
Sure.
I've had more than enough people stop by my house, and some of them I wish they wouldn't have. I'm more than willing to sit down with anybody. If they have a problem, they can call. If I'm on the council, they can call and ask me anything they want about council business. Isn't that council business? So, no, I'd be more than glad to have an open meeting with constituents out there any time. It's tough enough trying to get people to come to council meetings. We sit there at the council sometimes and there's nobody there. And I would love for people to come there. If they have a complaint, please bring it into the council and tell the whole council. And if they like something the council did, which doesn't happen very often according to people, come in and say that too. We appreciate, if you're on the council, we appreciate anybody that comes in and communicates with council. That's what we're there for. We're not there to make these decisions without people's input. That'd be the wrong thing to do. So, speaking for myself, come on in, if I'm back on the council.
Tony, what's your address for those of us that want to stop?
Like, make that public, please.
I'm just kidding.
Gail,
Trust
you
me,
used to be
they'll
on the-
find it if they want it.
You used to be on the council.
I actually think it'd be a great idea, because like Tony was saying, for some reason we can't get people to come to the council meetings, and maybe it's because they're afraid that they're gonna get stared down or whatever, but I think it'd be great to have like coffee with your constituents on like a Saturday morning or something. I think that's a great idea.
Awesome. Gail, you used to be a legislator.
Well, we used to do it every Saturday somewhere. You know, you get a lot of input from those types of deals. I sure wouldn't be against it. You need to hear what your constituents think. Sometimes, you know, I'm really amazed, and I want to thank everybody that came tonight. I didn't think we'd get this good crowd, but frankly. And thank you for showing some interest. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bob, you used to be on the council?
I did. Informally, I would visit with people all the time. I'm around town every day, in and out of different businesses, and would visit with people anytime that they wanted to talk city stuff. I was more than happy to do it. Officially, I have sat up exactly at this table, counting tonight, two other times, where we had people, whole groups of people come in, ask us any questions they wanted to, and I was part of that discussion panel. And those are always welcome. I enjoy doing them. I think those are great. If On Hand wants to continue to put those on and do it 2 or 3 times a year in exactly this setting, it's a great thing. I've been part of it before, and I would look forward to doing all that again. And again, we have, at the beginning of every meeting, is public input. Anybody and everybody is welcome to come in and tell us what you're thinking, what's on your mind. If you've got an issue, that is always welcome at every city council meeting.
Thank you. Pat, do you have an input on that?
I do. In today's world, we have so much access to other people, and I think that we could really explore as council members of getting the people's access to us. Because at the end of the day, if I was elected, my vote needs to directly represent what people told me. Not if I had a different opinion of everybody that told me their opinion. My vote has to represent everybody's opinion as an average in my area. So whether that is holding meetings to get that opinion, or most people have my phone number anyway, I get the advantage of being in very many circles between my job as an electrician. I'm in people's houses, get to hear all sorts of things while I'm in there as far as what's going on in town. Fire department, I get to see a lot of people a day, and I'm very blessed with getting to know what the voice of the people is. So, as many different ways as I can get that voice told to me, it's a valuable resource.
And Will?
Well, I think to do the duty of a city council person well, you need to take input from your constituents. I mean, that's the only way to do that, I think. You do it well, and I would always be more than open to conversation, questions, or comments from anyone.
Awesome. Next question. If events or concern arise in our community, transparency is vital, and we, the citizens, should be allowed to visit with any council person or employee.
Can you say that again?
If events or concerns arise in our community, transparency is vital, and we, the citizens, should be allowed to visit with our council person or city employee. So, and then question mark.
Absolutely.
So,
You know, I encourage people to come and talk. You know, if you have a problem or question, I may not have my cell phone, but my home phone is still available. You know, small community, you know my address. A lot of people found it already. But if you do that, please keep your tone and your conversations very civil. I've had every one, bad ones, good ones, but if you have a question, and I'm on the council, I'm more than willing to meet with anybody, discuss anything.
Ward 3.
As long as it's not something that's in litigation or something like that, you know, everybody should feel free to come forward and talk to any of us if we're on the council or the mayor or an employee. I don't have a problem with people talking to employees as long as they're respectful and, you know, go by the rules.
Mayor.
There's another word that starts with transparency, and that's trust. Without transparency, you don't have trust. If, you know, convey to the community what you can, and then be able to be, be able to be approached, city worker or whoever, to be able to ask questions or inquire or to ask, anything that they feel that needs to be asked or shared. But I also feel that there's, some things like, the only thing I can think of that, that Dale brought it up is litigation, and of course you can't discuss those things, but in order to have the trust of your constituents, you have to have transparency.
Okay. Mayor Bob?
The transparency thing is, I don't even believe it to be an issue, honestly. I think people can come and speak with anybody on the council at any time. Employees I know are asked questions throughout their day when they're seen on the street or wherever it might be. And they're free to give their opinions. There are certain circumstances when COVID was big. Here a couple of years ago, I served as the COVID spokesman for the council, and I was on the COVID task force. There was a lot of that we did not talk about, and that was an agreement as our task force that this was not for public discussion. So there are things that were not and should not necessarily be for public discussion. But that was not a transparency issue. That was far more of a security issue, things that were going on that we were dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Ask all the questions you want. When there's an official decision made, that's when the spokesman portion of it came in from a little while ago, but until that point, no. People are free to ask any of those questions. So.
Ward 1?
I see no problem with transparency here in the city either, except like Dale said, if it's litigation, there's certain things you absolutely can't talk about, but as long as it's done in a civil and respectful manner. If someone comes and starts yelling at one of the workers or something, I wouldn't expect that worker to stand there and take it. I'd just say, oh, we're done talking, and we'll walk away.
Ward 1?
I think transparency is real important, and I think communication goes hand in hand with transparency. And as long as citizens feel that they are able to communicate with the council and vice versa, I think that helps remove a lot of doubt about transparency, and that makes everybody have a little more trust in each other. And I think you gotta have all that to make this all work. The citizens need to have faith in the council, and the council needs to be forthcoming. I think that is the case.
Ward 2?
I believe transparency is a very important thing. Obviously, litigation, executive session speaks for itself. It's not going to be talked about. But anything that we can say to each other needs to be open, where it's an open knowledge gets across to the person asking the questions. I don't think the city employees will disagree that it's pretty open to questions. They're getting asked questions all the time. My only thing about that would be, as long as it's respectful, but if you have a complaint, I think it should be taken to the department head, because if you're complaining about what someone's doing to an employee, it might not get relayed the same way. So obviously complaints should go to the appropriate authority, but as far as transparency, I think we need to be an open book as much as possible.
Joe, right?
I think transparency is very important with all the way up and down through employees, right up to the commission, councilman, and I'm always open for that too.
Okay. Last question here I have is, what are the goals of the city council to keep young families in the community? Parks, pools, sidewalks, ball fields, question mark. We did word 3, so another question. So we'll go to the mayors. So, Bob?
Of course, you just answered the question with all your parks, pools, ballparks, and keeping young families here. Young families obviously are our future, and as we are an aging community, we absolutely have to have these young families coming in and feeling that the activities are here to support them. The pool is a huge project coming up that I think everybody feels good about. Financing the new pool is gonna be a little bit of a different deal there. It can be done. It's gonna require countywide support from a lot of individuals, from businesses. Really necessary to keep these young families and the young kids happy and healthy. The ballpark is something that the city has really gotten back into funding and taking a great deal of pride in. I think that's gonna continue there. Housing is a big thing that young people want to build. They want housing. That is a huge concern that I know economic development has been working on. Along with the city, we have city people that are part of economic development and housing. That's going forward is gonna be a big issue. Where are these young families gonna live? We don't have any really nice areas at this point. That's gonna be very important. I think Miller has done a nice job in moving forward as far as keeping those things going to keep the young people happy and occupied.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's important that the infrastructure with regard to the activities that are available to the youth, swimming pool, park, and things of that sort. But another one, the concern that I have as president of Russell Roost, we don't have a director. Because we don't have a director, we have a number of families that don't have care facilities for their kids, and shared tonight with one of the other board members. But I know we just had a meeting again this last week to try to not only to address the director, but also the concern we have moving forward to where we're going to be able to maybe have the place if the school begins to expand, with regard to that. So that's another, concern with regard to the pool, the parks, and things of this sort. Do we have some facilities or after-school care for the young kids of working parents? And then our goal is always to try to keep it as affordable as we possibly can. I mean, we operated on pretty much bare minimum, still be responsible for the staff that was employed, but I think that's another area that I'm sure young families will attest to that is also a concern within our community. So, but we still have to make it an attractive place for it, accommodating, where people feel welcomed, and we have the services and the facilities and the recreational areas that they're looking for too.
Thank you. Ward 1? Whoop.
I think a lot of the main points have been hit on here a little bit. Obviously, housing is a huge problem, especially for families and larger families. Yeah, again, On Hand has made a pretty good effort to try to find some resolution to that, but it's going to take effort from the city, I think, to work with On Hand to try to find a solution there. And as far as the park, the pool, and the ball diamond goes, I think we need to make a conscious effort to make sure that we are putting the money into that is required, so that we maintain those facilities and keep them nice. I mean, those facilities don't do us any good if we let them get too far outdated or too far behind. That loses a lot of the enticement that they do bring to the table. So I think that's something that everybody needs to keep in mind when we're talking about that kind of thing. And pedestrian infrastructure, I think, is also always important. If you're gonna have places like the pool, the ball diamonds that kids are gonna be traveling to, we need to make sure that we have a way to get them there safely.
Thank you. Ward 1.
Well, I think the city is on hand and worked pretty good together to try to solve the housing issue, which is a big issue. And I mean, we've lost several businesses on the east side of town here in this past year that we need to try, and hopefully we get someone back in those businesses. As far as the pool, I mean, that's something that, it's gonna, like I think Bob said, it's gonna take a county-wide effort, because the whole county uses the pool. It's not the citizens of Miller. And I think the city's done a great job on the ballparks and that park. I mean, it looks nice every time you go there. I mean, they mow it and keep it up, but all this stuff's gonna take money and it's gonna take a lot of time and thought.
Thank you. Ward 2?
The goal for everything we do, city council is always, my goal when I first started was make this place, City of Miller, is somewhere so our kids come back or stay in Miller. And if you just take a look at what we've got for the hospital, school, it's amazing what we've got here in this town. And the facilities, the park, everything like that it's amazing what we've got. And that's what's gonna attract people to come back here.
Thank you. Patrick?
It helps to be a little bit younger to know what challenges a young family faces when trying to decide a community. Obviously, I chose Miller for its gem of quality. There's always going to be topics that are going to directly promote growth and opportunity to young couples, and we need to keep investing in those types of opportunities and of housing growth and supporting the organizations that are actively trying to help fix those issues. At the same time, we need to attract the city to young couples to come in. We can't forget about the people that are of retired age that have been here their whole lives as well, that might have certain opinions about their facing their challenges and not just always focusing on young people, because I don't know the exact percentage, but I know a large percentage of Miller is retired plus age. So we need to make sure that all of their needs are being met, whether it's good transportation, or at least city utilities for good transportation, they can get to where they need to go, or they can walk where they need to walk. Because if we do that, they're gonna tell people about Miller looks out for its citizens, it's gonna attract young people, and they're gonna start looking for a place here for opportunity housing.
Ward 3?
I think housing, especially for younger people, is probably the biggest thing. And the city has worked with On Hand quite well. There's one example right out the window there. You can see they brought in a governor's house and got it started. But we need to do more than one. We need to work with the state. Maybe it's a city-state On Hand partnership. Maybe even if you can find an individual who wants to invest some money into a project, find an area where you can build some family homes. And there's some of those around. It's gonna take some cash. Unfortunately, right now with the interest rate going up, that's gonna hurt that a little bit. People aren't so apt to invest in something like that if they can get 4 or 5% at the bank, for instance. As far as the pool, I agree with what they said. It's a countywide thing, and that's gonna flesh out as we go along. I don't have any doubt about that. The ball diamonds down there, I think there's new leadership in the American Legion. I believe you're gonna see that turn around even more. The city does the maintenance and does just a whale of a job. I go down by there about every day going to the track, and I'm amazed how often I see Roger or somebody out there doing something. They're mowing, you can tell when there's gonna be a game, they're putting down the lines, and it's something to be proud of, to watch the people work that way.
Ward 3?
I don't know if there's anything left to say. Everybody's covered just about everything we can. The only thing is, yes, we need to retain the people, the young people that are here right now. And what we also need is to have some sort of employment for them too. Bring new people in. And just to give a plus to the Miller school system. When we moved here, my daughter was a C average student out of Huron. Straight A's, 4.0 out of Miller. Has one of the best school systems for young people right here, for the young kids, the young people coming to the community. That should be one of the goals that we say. We have one of the excellent schools in the state right here. So, but we do need to bring businesses into town. And unfortunately, when I was on the council, most of the business won't come in unless there is natural gas. That's the biggest complaint they have, is there's no natural gas. And can testify to that. But we need to also bring in businesses and maintain the businesses we have, because those businesses, the owners are all getting up there in age too. We need to have people come back in and take their positions and try to get loans to buy them. And like everybody said, the interest rates now are just not good. And housing is very important too. So that's about all I got to add to everybody else's comments.
Okay, well, these last two questions are on the exact same subject. So I'll kind of try to put them together here a little bit. And it's basically the city employees and how you value them and respect them. So, we did the mayor, so Ward 4. Will?
Well, I have some experience with employees as a business owner now for almost a decade. There's a huge learning curve there, and it takes time and it takes effort to understand and maintain a relationship with employees. That's a work in progress all the time, and as long as you're being aware of that, you can make those relationships work. And again, this takes time and experience, and showing employees the value that you do feel for them sometimes can be difficult, and you know there's a fine line there between compensation and work and appreciation, and that's a tough balance. And I feel like with the experience that I have, I would be well experienced in that department.
Thank you. We want to be able.
Well, I think I've had a very good working relationship with the city employees. I treated them respect, and I would go and talk to them and ask them, is there something we're not doing that you need, but the main thing is if you look at the employees that the city employs, they don't have much of a turnover. They're all employees that have been here a long time, and that's something that's gonna start coming up here. There are several of them that are very close to retirement, so hopefully maybe there'll be some new jobs there where some new family or something coming to town may have a chance of getting one of those jobs. But I mean, they're the city employees are the ones that make it work. They're the ones out there in the field making it work.
Thank you. Ward 2, Joe.
The city of Miller has a great workforce. Every day they're doing stuff for the betterment of Miller. And I'd like to think that I have a great working relationship with them. Every once in a while I'll stop and have, during their coffee break, have a coffee break with them and just find out what's going on that day, just to see what's going on. And I hope that's creating a relationship of respect with them.
Awesome, thank you. Ward 2, Patrick.
I've had the pleasure of working with many of the city employees. Just with the job that I have obtained, we have to work together to accomplish a common goal. I think the relationship with employees should be simple, and I don't like the word employee because we're all working towards the same goal. So it's kind of really the team atmosphere. You need to build that team atmosphere that, hey, what do you need? What can I do to help you accomplish your job? And then not just having it as a false promise, and actually deliver on what you need to perform your job to the best ability, because ultimately that is the best ability to the city. And they need to be compensated fairly for the job that they perform, and as long as you have that, they're going to perform that job to the best of their ability, because they're going to feel part of the team, and they're all going towards the same goal. So as long as we keep a team atmosphere, and everybody working towards the same goal, and respect each other, then I think it can continue, because they're all accomplish what they're set out to.
Thank you. Ward 3, Dale.
Well, I think we've got a very good set of employees, and if you put me on the council, I'll guarantee you one thing: I'm not gonna micromanage them. If you want somebody to micromanage your employees, you vote for the other guy, because that's what he does. He's down there every morning, or just about every morning, And I've heard from past employees, they don't like that. So that's one of the reasons I'm running. I think you hire good people, you have good bosses, and you let them do the job. We're administrators. We administrate. We don't need to be the boss out of the job.
I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. For one thing, I was gonna do it anyway. I was not down there micromanaging. I was down there communicating with the employees for a good working relationship between the employees and the council person. I've dealt with employees, I had employees when I was a postmaster. I learned from there how to deal with people, how to treat them with respect. They are the backbone of the city, it's the employees. If you don't treat them with respect and communicate with them to see what their feelings are, you're not gonna have anything. It's my understanding communication isn't very good now. So they need to have that back with them again. It's not micromanaging, it's just good communication with employees. And if you ask the employees, none of them will tell you I micromanage. I went down there and got the information so I could make good decisions. You need to get the employees' input on these before you make a decision. They are important and it affects them. That's what you have to keep in mind. Everything you do on that council affects those employees. So if you don't have a good working relationship with them in communication, you're something.
Thank you. Bob?
So Miller has amazing employees, which we've heard up and down the line here. Any business owner, any business manager will tell you everything in that business, which the city of Miller is, revolves around their employees. They are the ones in the field, on the street, doing the work that needs to be done, and we are just the administrators. We set the basics, we turn the good people loose and let them do their work. Our job is really to give them the tools they need and then stand back. They will take care of it. I think I have a huge amount of respect for the employees that work for our city. It needs to be extended to them at all times. Tony makes a great point. You have to be in communication. We had a meeting with our employees a number of years ago, and as all the employees came in one at a time, the one thing that we heard over and over again, the central point was communication, lack of communication. And I took notes on every one of them. To a person coming in, that was the one central point that they made. So for Tony to be going in, or any of the rest of us to be going in to communicate with our employees is a good thing. Micromanaging is not, but I don't believe that's what Tony was doing at all. That's not what any of us want to do. We have good employees. They do not need micromanaged. City of Miller is really lucky. When you look at your streets, everybody is happy, incredibly happy with the streets. The sewer, the water, everything is working just the way it should in the city of Miller, and we can do this nothing but be proud of our city employees. So.
Thank you, Bob. Tom?
I feel I'm lucky because a lot of these city employees I've had the fortune to teach. I've had a fortune to work with Gordy, and if I haven't taught them, I either teach their kids or had some communication. So I value the relationship I had with them as former athletes and former students, and I value that relationship I have with them, all that who are up there now. I do poke my head in every one, 2 or 3 times a week just to have that communication. I think one of the first things that happened when I got on the council is we had a meeting with the employees, and you have to have that. You walk into I don't care if it's a classroom, you can sense if everything is going to go in the direction it needs to go. We're going to get something done. But you can also walk in and feel some things that something needs to be fixed. And then, and I think the communication is that key. And it's walking in with nothing other than this project is going on, or DGR is coming in, or just is there anything I need to look at with regard to the agenda that's coming up that we need to look at, with regard to that. But I think the communication factor, the working relationship is huge. And I've always valued that. And I've always, think that's what makes you effective as far as the role. I don't care if it's an educator, I don't care if it's a coach, I don't care if it's a councilman or a mayor or any of you working within the confines of what you work with. I mean, that communication is vital. And I understand that. And that is one thing that I take pretty serious with regard to that. And we need to maintain a good, positive working relationship. That doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but we also need to have an opportunity for people to express themselves in a rightful manner. So I echo. I think we got a great crew. We really do, and I think if it's just important to move forward with regard to if there's something that needs to take place or something that needs to be discussed, we can discuss it. But that's important and stuff as far as just that working relationship, and then we need to talk. We can talk. We can visit about things. So I know like I said, I've taken the time to probably go down there. Went down there this afternoon and got some information with regard to our electricians going to go to a meeting and gave the agenda, so that was kind of nice to see too. So I don't want the light to come on. I will stop. So, but we do value our employees, and anyway, thank you. Oh, I missed the light. Sorry. There's not a charge for these chairs.
Is there any other questions? Because we're getting to where we probably should wind down. Otherwise, we might be here all night, which I guess if we have to, we have to. But any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to let them have closing comments. Nothing? Well, when I was asked to put this on, I thought, oh boy, how are we going to get all the candidates here? And I'm so proud that all 8 was very receptive and was wanting this. So thank you all. And I hope they really appreciate the fact that we have this many candidates that are wanting and caring about Miller, that they're wanting to be involved in city government. So it's awesome. And it shows me that we have pride here that there's 8 people providing for 4 jobs that want to be in the government. So, and also too, I want to thank all you people for coming, because you're the ones that put on the questions. Otherwise, we just been staring at each other. Thank you all, and it shows that you have pride in your community to be here. But the one I want to thank all, because when I thought about this, I'm like, how am I going to get this done? And I called June, and she said, yes, I will do it. And I thought she did a great job putting this on for And with that, you can close it out with letting them have their final say.
And so, yeah, we're going to give everybody a couple minutes to wrap it up. And I started with the mayor, so I'll start with Ward 3 at the end. So,
Okay, well,
you're first.
once again, like everybody else, thank you all for coming, appreciate it a lot. I've heard a few things around about, well, how come you can have a husband and a wife on the council? Well, before I decided to do this, we asked the Secretary of State, and it's allowable. It's certainly my right to run if I want. It's her right to run if she wants. Anybody that thinks we're trying to control it, I invite you to come to my house when we're having an elevated discussion. And you tell me on the argument. Because in 48 years, I haven't figured it out yet. We're not trying to control it for this reason, that reason, or any other reason. We simply want Miller to be a better place, as good as it's been, and even better if we can make it that way. And I think working together, we can do that. We touched on the issues that we need to be looking at, the swimming pool, ball diamonds, working with the school, working with the county, and above all, I think housing. That's going to be our #1 hardest thing to sell, to get young people, because they can't afford a $300,000 house. So we need to do something. I don't know if we can, how we can do it, but we gotta investigate it with the federal government. There's federal funds for some of these things. You'd be amazed how much money's laying around, and the state government has got even more. Bill Janko always bragged when he left $4 billion in many different accounts out there. There was no reason they couldn't get a loan. I can't imagine what's in there now. The daily balance when I was in the legislature, or the cash flow account, the account that the money comes in and the money goes out, was $1 billion a day. I'll bet you it's 2 now. There are funds out there. There are federal funds out there. We simply need to see if we can access them through On Hand, through the city of Miller, and get a housing project started so we can get some affordable housing for younger people. And once we prove we can do that, the people will come. Thank you. I appreciate your vote.
Ward 3, Tony.
I don't have much to say, really. That in the 10, 12 years I was on there, I did the best I could for the city of Miller, always with the majority of citizens in mind when I made a decision. And if elected again, I will continue to do that same thing. You're always going to have people that disagree. You're not going to get 100% of people agreeing with anything that you do or say. So my goal was always to do the best I could for the whole community, the majority of people in the community. And just one last thing here. Did you know where the term alderman came from?
No.
It comes from an old English meaning elder man, which I am. I appreciate your vote.
Ward 2, Joe.
I'm impressed. I love the process of government and people being involved, and that's why I started it. A long time ago, I got on the city council because I was literally bitching about something, and then my wife said, quit your bitching, go do something about it. And that's why I want to be on here again. I'm impressed that all these people showed up. I'm impressed we have this many people involved in it, and I appreciate your vote in a couple of weeks.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Patrick.
So, I'm in the habit of helping, and I believe that I do that in a lot of different circles. With talking with a few people, I was convinced that I could probably help on the city council as well. I just want to emphasize that I am not coming in because I think I can help in one certain area. I think I can help give an objective approach to everything and weigh the options and talk with anybody. Another emphasis is I'm not just bringing a young opinion into it and just wanting to vote a young way. There's no bias when I go help it in any other of my circles that I'm in, so I'm really looking to represent the elderly, represent the retired people, represent the young people, and represent the people that have no vote as far as the children. So as long as I can represent the people as a whole from my district ward, I think that I could be a good choice. I know I could be a good choice. So if you feel the same way, give me a vote.
Okay, Ward 1.
Thank you all for coming. We sure appreciate it. There's been a lot of interesting things said tonight, and I think most of it is pretty common sense stuff. I think in a town our size, it's real important that we're always trying to move forward and we're not getting stuck somewhere. And I think sometimes the best way to do that is to have people that are properly motivated by the future to make decisions for the future. And I would like to be that person for you. So if I could have your vote come April, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Ward 1.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming too. It's nice to see this big of a turnout. And I want to work on the city council to make sure we keep a future in Miller, because if we don't, and that includes all the citizens working together, Miller's not going to have a future if we don't get younger people in here, and the housing, like we talked earlier tonight, is a big problem. And I guess that's why I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Bob.
So I love the idea of serving. Before I served as city council, I have done a large amount of volunteer work in the community. I've coached multiple kids' sports. I've refereed. I continue to referee kids' sports. I spent 20-some years running the clock and the scoreboard at the local football games. I like that. I loved owning Turtle Creek. I loved serving people when they came into our restaurant and doing my part to make people happy and give them what they wanted. That's a large part of why I'd like to get back on city council, be running for mayor. I think I also will bring a great business perspective, as I've owned a business for 40 years. A business perspective brings an entirely new view to see the big picture. I think I'm good at that. I bring a lot of common sense to my everyday approach to my business at the ranch, and I will continue to do that on city council. I look forward to serving Miller, and I'd appreciate everybody's vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tom?
As a young high school student, I became interested in government, and my passion for education went on to be able to teach government. I've had, and probably some of my proudest moments with regard to, despite the, away from my family and some of the other things, was being able to serve the community. I'm proud of a lot of things we accomplished. We got the crossing arms to the railroad tracks, and the main reason we got the crossing arms because of that, with the kids going out to the playground, the soccer fields and the baseball diamonds. That was a huge concern of ours. I worked with Governor Janklow and Governor Rounds to secure the funding for the fire hall. It took a process. It took a few letters. It took a working relationship with different entities, including the city council, to get that accomplished. To work at the bathhouse to get that completed and up and running, because of those of you who remember the old one, it needed to be replaced. And so there's a number of things, the improvement at the airport, and we have the funding available, we have the resources with regard to the in-kind help that needs, some of that stuff that needed to be done. And I would, again, thank you for being here. Thank those who took the time that couldn't be here, that are watching, but I would really appreciate your vote and to serve a community that I'm very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you all for coming. And thank all the candidates for being here. So have a good rest of the evening, and don't think about tomorrow.